All right. Hi, I'm Barry Worthington. I'm a filmmaker, director, writer, and actor, and I do all kinds of other film work. How's this? How's this for an angle? This is different, but I think it's creative. I think it's I think it's neat. Okay, so I did something I thought some of you might appreciate. I'm trying as best I can to declutter my life and where I live. Nonetheless, sometimes I like to collect all kinds of different things, including magazines. And there's one magazine in particular I've wanted for a very long time. So I finally went ahead and went on eBay and found someone selling this. So I went ahead and got it. It's extremely sentimental to me and very, very nostalgic. It's from 1997, I think. And so one of the reasons I'm making this video is to share how fun I think this is with you, but also I thought by opening the magazine, it would actually be a little bit of a time capsule to what life in 1997 was like. I'm filming this way because we're going to open a magazine and I'm going to read it. And as I do so, I'm going to be flipping around kind of like this every now and then and back to here. Because when I originally read this magazine, I'm sure I read it on the floor just like this when I was a kid. So I thought it'd be fun. So right now it's June 27th, 2024. I am 35 years old. Around this time, 1997, this would have been from a few months before I turned, I think, 9 years old. So I guess this was the summer where I was about to go into fourth grade. And I think I've talked about how my fourth grade year ended up being a very important one for me in my filmmaking journey. That's where I, in a pretty big way, took a big step forward, deciding this is what I wanted to do with my life. I'm going to give a big shout out to Mr. Moore for helping me with that. I know I've thanked you a lot, and I'm going to thank you again here. And thank you to all my teachers and all my mentors and everyone who's helped me on my journey. I hope I've helped others with their journeys. And as a film instructor, I hope I've done that in a very direct way. And as a filmmaker, I hope I've helped people as well. All right, back to this. So I think this magazine is from about April or May, I think, of 1997. By this time in my life, I knew that I loved Steven Spielberg and George Lucas, and I really wanted to be like them. The original Jurassic Park had been a couple years old, and the funny thing is while that is now one of my favorite movies, by 1997, it was certainly one of my favorite movies, but I wasn't really that aware of it when it first came out in 1993. I would have been about 4 or 5 when that came out. I was definitely too young for it at the time when it came out. And by the way, I'm in Gaithersburg, Maryland, where I'm from. Jurassic Park apparently originally premiered at the Uptown Movie Theater in DC, which is not that far from here. That's my understanding. And it's my understanding, I haven't been over that way in a while, but I'm pretty sure that movie theater is closed, which is very, very sad. But I've been by that movie theater a bunch of times. In fact, when I was getting my MFA at American University, we made one of our student short films at that theater. I had no idea it was that historic, and I had no idea it was that personally relevant to me. I've actually been to Amblin. I have stood in their conference room. I've waited in their lobby. I've been in their theater. I think I had some popcorn. I love the architecture of that place. Thank you very much to the folks there for your hospitality. And that was like right when I think Ready Player One had come out. I went there in a group from American University after I graduated with my MFA, like a week after I graduated, as part of what they call the LA Intensive. It was a very competitive process to be selected to be a part of that. And I worked really hard for that. And I'm very thankful that everything worked out because I had dreamed about that since I was a kid. It was awesome. It was incredible. I still got my pass somewhere. That was a dream come true. Did not get to meet Mr. Spielberg, unfortunately. I'm not even sure if he was there that day, but maybe someday. Anyway, so a couple years after it came out is when I started getting into it, and around when I became aware that there was going to be a sequel, The Lost World Jurassic Park. I still remember we were on a family trip and it was a big deal when they premiered the trailer on TV. I was so excited. I think when they premiered the trailer, I think that was the summer that the Lost in Space film came out. And I think there was a re-release of Grease or something like that. I can keep going, but let me try to keep back on track. So I knew there was a new Jurassic Park coming out, The Lost World Jurassic Park. I couldn't wait. I was so excited. And like I said, by this time, along with George Lucas, I knew I wanted to be like Steven Spielberg. And so one day I was with my dad at the local 7-Eleven, which is still there. And they used to have this magazine rack where they had comic books and all kinds of different things, including Time magazine. And I will never forget seeing this magazine on that rack. So this is a magazine for when The Lost World Jurassic Park was about to come out, and on the cover was Steven Spielberg. And I knew I loved this director, and I really wanted to be like him. I bought it, or maybe I asked my dad if he could buy it for me. I can't remember if I had like saved up my own dollars and cents for this. I can't remember. But we got it, and it was mine, and I loved it. But I'm not sure whatever happened to it. So recently I went on eBay and bought another copy, and it just arrived recently, and I am about to open it on camera, sharing this experience with you. I have not seen this magazine in probably 20 years or so, maybe probably a lot more than that. But what I can still remember very clearly is in this magazine, I'm positive there is a photograph of Steven Spielberg in, I think, a director's chair inside a soundstage with big soundstage doors next to him, I guess behind him, and they're open, and you see these big feet of the T-Rex outside. I still remember that, and I bet we're going to find that when we open this. I've also used some of my gaff tape to try to hide whenever there's something that reveals who the original owner of this magazine was, which I'm sure they appreciate. And hopefully this is going to be a lot of fun. All right, you ready? Here we go. So here it is. The trick is to open this without ripping the magazine. That would be pretty bad. All right, here we go. Hey, there it is. Let me cover the name and address of the person this came from. Here it is. Hey. That's awesome. That's awesome. And did I see there's a cigarette ad on the back? This is very cool. It says, if you were Steven Spielberg, you'd be smiling too. I remember this. I remember the red curtains, the Raptors, everything. All right, so this came out May 19th, 1997. All right, I'm going to cut this a little bit to cover up the name and the address that are on here. All right, I did my best. So here we are. All right, let's take a look through here. So you got a Honda. This is an ad for the Honda, the Accord V6 sedan. This is, just right there in the opening. I got to be careful with this. This is very I got to be careful. An ad for Smirnoff. Here's this part. Here's a little bit of the inside here. It says, this is in the art section. Cover, Close Encounters with Steven Spielberg. Hollywood's erstwhile boy wonder, creator of Jaws and E.T., is 50. The devoted father of 7 and a dedicated mentor to a new generation of filmmakers. All right. All right. It's good. It's good. All right. He returns this month from a 3-year directorial hiatus with the eagerly anticipated sequel to Jurassic Park and the power to help American movies achieve their own coming of age. Oh man, I just saw what was under that. Under music, led by Hanson, Tot Pop is scoring on the charts. So the portion about Steven Spielberg is on page 74. I assume this bit about Hanson is on page 84. Baby Boom bard James Taylor has a new album on page 88. And Sleater Kinney's In Your Face Feminist Rock is on page 91. I don't want to read everything out loud, obviously. I'm not sure I can do that on video. Can I? I don't know. But, if you want to check this out, you can try to get your own copy. Let me just see what else we have. Merchandise for the Rosie O'Donnell show. You can buy a Wallace and Gromit talking alarm clock and a Late Show with David Letterman sweatshirt and tees. That's all right here. All right, what else you got? Here's an ad. This is for Johnson & Johnson floss. Isn't this is like exactly what that floss looks like in 2024, doesn't it? Isn't that exactly what those little cartridges look like? Oh my gosh, look at this ad for this minivan. All right, I'm jumping ahead to the Spielberg part, which again, I haven't seen this in so long. Again, I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm not going to show you the whole thing, but I just thought this was cool nonetheless. So I hope I'm pronouncing these folks' names right. This is by Richard Corliss and Jeffrey Ressner. And here it is. It says, Peter Pan grows up. but can he still fly? So if this is 1997, isn't this something like 7 years after Hook came out? I told you, I knew it was here. I told you, there it is. That's awesome. Maybe there will be a photo of me like this one day. If there isn't one already. Maybe you too. If you don't mind, this is important to me. I'm going to read this out loud. So there's a quote, I think, from him talking about Jaws in 1975. I think this is a quote from Steven Spielberg. "The loneliest time of my life. Jaws exacerbates the loneliness by the sheer size of the Atlantic Ocean and the challenge of shooting a complete motion picture on the water." Advice I should think about as I venture to make my first feature-length film, which currently is not set on the ocean. But nonetheless, that advice might come in very handy. Oh yes, to note, and in case you haven't seen my other videos, I'm in the middle of pre-production for my first feature-length film, which I hope to get started filming and releasing soon. I've made a whole bunch of other short films, but this is going to be my first feature-length film. Check this out. This is a quote from George Lucas in here. It says, "People like Steven don't come along every day," says his friend and frequent collaborator George Lucas. "And when they do, it's an amazing thing. It's like talking about Einstein or Babe Ruth or Tiger Woods. He's not in a group of filmmakers his age. He's far, far away." Hey, check this out. This is a quote talking about how the success of the first Jurassic Park kind of demanded a sequel. It says, "Spielberg felt burned by sequels he had not controlled, especially those to Jaws, which Universal farmed out to other directors." Says Kathleen Kennedy, his longtime associate and one of the producers of Jurassic Park, and I think this is long before she was running Lucasfilm, by the way. She says, "Steven still harbors a bit of regret about the way Jaws 2 and 3 turned out." Now, here's just a little thing I want to say about that. That I actually like Jaws 2 and Jaws 3. I might make another video about this at some point, but I think as far as sequels go, I think Jaws 2 is pretty great. I think in a lot of ways it raises the stakes. I do not think it's just a rehash of what came before. And if you've seen it, you might agree with me. I think the character arc of Chief Brody and what he goes through is really, really interesting. And then for Jaws 3 is really dark. That's a dark movie. It's brutal. I don't even like thinking about some of it. But I think as a story, I think it's really interesting. And where they go with it, I think is really interesting. That's all maybe a conversation for another time. But nonetheless, it is my understanding that, I mean, it's saying right, as Kathleen Kennedy is saying right there, her quote is, "Steven still harbors a bit of regret about how the way Jaws 2 and Jaws 3 turned out." I believe I had heard that was his feeling somewhere else. I think I read that too. Here's another bit that's interesting. Spielberg came up with the theme of The Lost World at the end of a meeting with David Coep, a screenwriter of the first Jurassic Park. As Coep recalls, Steven said, this is a quote, Steven said, I've got it. This movie is about hunters versus gatherers." Out of that epiphany unfolded the story's central conflict about the rogue businessmen who are breeding dinosaurs for profit, a most dangerous game that backfires. You can check out the rest of that on your own, but I think that's really interesting, given where the plot of The Lost World goes. I know for me, trying to figure out the theme of my films has been really, really important. And I know for this film that I'm working on right now, I'm going to be frank with you, it actually was in some ways difficult. But when you kind of figure out the theme of the film that you want to make, it really lights a fire, and really feels like this is what it's all kind of about. It helps propel everything forward. And I know for me, it kind of feels like, like the crystallization of a message, or at least a feeling or something that I want to connect with the audience about. So if they had difficulty figuring that out for The Lost World Jurassic Park, and it kind of came down to Steven Spielberg having this epiphany of realizing what the theme was, I think that's really fascinating. Because don't forget, at least the first movie is based on a book. What I need to figure out is did the sequel book of The Lost World Jurassic Park, when Michael Crichton was writing that, did they already know there was going to be a film adaptation of it? I imagine at that point he must have known that. And I have not yet read the Lost World Jurassic Park novel. I definitely intend to. I've read the original Jurassic Park novel, and it is very different from the film. It's definitely worth reading and to compare and contrast them to each other, I think. Here's a quote. All right, so this is talking about 1991, the film Hook. I thought that came out in 1990. Maybe it did come out in 1991. But I think this is a quote from him where it says, October 21, Kate and I are married. Hook goes down for the count, but I couldn't care less. Could that be referring to, did Hook not do well when it came out? That's so shocking to me. Have you seen that movie? It's amazing. I should look into that. Because for me and my family, that movie means a lot. I think he talks about here a little bit, there's a quote about Schindler's List, which is also quoted as being 1993. Which, in case you're not aware, I'm pretty sure Steven Spielberg made Jurassic Park and Schindler's List like back to back. Let's keep going. And there's a quote here, I think, from him that says, I wanted to see a T-Rex stomping down a street. And that's how I felt as well. And here's a photo. This is probably like one of the first photos I saw of The Lost World Jurassic Park. I can't remember if the movie had come out by the time I first read this and by the time that this magazine came out. But I vaguely remember seeing this photograph in this magazine as well. Well, that was very cool. That was really awesome. I hope you enjoyed that. You can try to get one of these yourself. There's plenty of people on eBay who are selling them. All right? I hope you enjoyed that. And I'll tell you what, I'll put this out in the universe. Why not? Mr. Spielberg. Can I call you Steven? I'm going to keep calling you Mr. Spielberg personally until you tell me otherwise. If you ever want to get a cup of coffee or something, just let me know. Okay, and that'll do it for me. You can check out more of my films and my work at limitlessfilms.com. All right, everyone. Bye for now.